On this episode of RevHang.
Here's a sneak peek of what I'm going through right now, viewership.
They got, is it
Yeah.
X mode? What do they call it? It's not X mode. Is it X mode? It might be.
Triple X mode.
Probably not that.
I mean, I was already set up to spend $500 on a Pontiac Vibe and make it into a rally car.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of RevHang. I'm Nathan and alongside me virtually is my co-host Ben. How you doing today, Ben?
Good. I rearranged my entire office. I pretty much flipped the entire thing 90 degrees.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a very different background. That's not quite as nice, but I had to fit my brand new 2009 AVR receiver on the shelf next to me, building the best audio system of 2010.
Awesome. Just a little bit behind the times, but you know, it's fine.
Hey, it's like $200 instead of $1,000, so
There you go. Stonks right there.
stonks. Yeah.
All right, so this is not an audiophile podcast as much as I think Ben and I would both enjoy that.
I could get so down for an audiophile podcast.
That would be pretty sweet. But this is, in fact, a racing podcast, and we do have a couple of races to go over that happened this week. One good one, one okay one.
Well, you decide which is which.
Yeah, sure. All right. But first off, let's start with some paddock news. We do have some movement in the driver market. First off, with Oliver Bearman being announced at Haas for 2025 and beyond on a multi-year deal.
You called it. Everyone called it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was not expecting this. I'm not sure if Stroll was renewed. I think Stroll was renewed last week, right?
Stroll was renewed, yeah.
It's so hard, like, on these triple headers to... everything blends together. So, yeah. Bearman to Haas and Ocon probably soon to follow. Next up in the driver market, we've got Perez, who there's not been a driver move yet, but it is impending. And there's not much he can do about it at this point. His contract clauses were released to the public after, it was either right before or right after the British Grand Prix. And he has to be within 100 points of Verstappen by the end of Spa, which is in 3 weeks' time. Ben's dog is playing with a toy and making for great podcast.
Here's a sneak peek of what I'm going through right now, viewership.
Okay. This might... Okay. Alright, well, Ben is dealing with technical difficulties. Or not so technical difficulties. Yeah. Perez. I'm just gonna cut all this out. It's chaos going on right now.
Okay, we're unmuted in OBS.
Okay, we're back. We're
so
back,
back.
baby. We're so back.
You'll just hear a distant squeaking from outside the office now.
Okay, fun stuff. Alrighty. Anyway, Perez's contract clauses were released to the public. He has to be within 100 points of Verstappen by the end of Spa, which is 2 races from now, and has to be within 5 places of Verstappen by the end of Spa. The second one is currently fulfilled. He is in P6.
He's
in the
exactly
championship.
5 places away.
With both Mercedes hot on his heels. So a couple more races that might not be the case. And points-wise, he's already way behind Verstappen and way outside that 100-point marker. And as I understand it, the clauses are either or. So if he doesn't have both of those, then he could be cut. And if he doesn't have either of those, I would imagine he is assuredly going to be cut.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, he had... Yeah, we'll talk about it later after we talk about the race, but...
Yeah. But yeah, it's not looking too good for Perez right now, and it seems as though this is the story that Red Bull is trying to paint for the public to hopefully lower the shock, which I don't think anyone will be shocked at this point.
We were more shocked that he got a contract extension, to be honest.
Yeah, Christian Horner. There's so many Christians in racing. Um, like
Christian
Lundgaard,
Lundgaard.
Rasmussen. No, Christian Horner said that at the time signing Perez made a lot of sense, which I 100% disagree with. But I am not a part of Red Bull Racing, so
Yeah.
take that as it will. But
I saw speculation that Sainz was waiting so long to decide his team placement because he wanted to wait out Perez at Red Bull.
yeah, that's possible. If I were Sainz, would try to get something on the books right now
Yeah.
before it's too late. Uh, he's kind of talking himself out of a contract at this point. So, Sainz needs to get a move on. But anyway, Perez is in trouble. But speaking of a Christian in the racing world, Christian Lundgaard has been signed at Aero McLaren in for the number 7, yeah, the number 7 car starting next year. So Alexander Rossi is now out of a seat and looking for a job.
I believe that was the end of his contract though, right? Or
It was, yeah.
yeah.
So his contract did only last for 2 years, so it's not like he's getting,
This was not a Siegel
blindsided.
moment.
Yeah, he's not getting blindsided, but I mean, he is gonna have to find somewhere else, which I'm sure he will. He's too good to not. Um, it's honestly miraculous to me that like there's people like Jack Harvey who are still on the grid. Um,
That's a
I
household
mean,
name.
yeah, right.
I'll not stand for the Harvey slander.
I can't remember the last time I saw Harvey in the top 10. But that guy's like the most anonymous guy in IndyCar. I swear.
Yeah,
Um,
I honestly forgot that he was racing in IndyCar. Like I thought, for some reason, I thought last year was his last year, but I think I was thinking Jimmy Johnson
yeah,
and not last
probably.
year.
Or a couple years ago. I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, so I'm sure Rossi will find a seat. I don't think that will be an issue for him. Um, but yeah, we'll talk about some more McLaren driver contract things later on. Mostly, obviously regarding IndyCar, nothing is going to change in Formula One probably for several years. Um, anyway, with all that being said, let's move into IndyCar and the Grand Prix at Mid-Ohio. We'll go through the top 10 in qualifying to give you some context. In first place was Alex Palou on pole position, followed by Pato O'Ward and David Malukas with a fantastic qualifying. Fourth and fifth were Herta and Armstrong. 6 through 10 were Ericsson, McLaughlin, Rossi, Rasmussen, and Lundgaard. All right, moving into the race, it's a doozy here. Dixon's engine shut off on the formation laps or the parade laps or whatever they call them. It's different than F1. But he was out of the race as soon as it began. He did manage to get up and running on lap 22 and back out and onto the track to get, well, basically testing at that point. But yeah, he was out of the race before it even began. Palou stormed off at the front, or stormed off out front at the start, opening up a 10-plus second lead to O'Ward in second. But as the race developed, O'Ward clawed his way back to Palou and ended up passing him on pit strategy. Towards the end of the race, Palou made up his gap to O'Ward and hounded him for the last 20 laps until the end of the race. And that's all the action we have to talk about.
It was kind of fun watching the Palou Award race, and well, I watched the second half of the race in the 30-minute highlights that IndyCar posts on YouTube, admittedly. And I would have liked to see the Herta Ericsson fight that was clearly going on for fourth place, but they didn't really feel like showing that. So there were a
Yeah,
couple good battles, but overall it wasn't a hugely exciting race aside from those
yeah.
two battles.
Not a single caution that race, which is very uncharacteristic of IndyCar. Um, but yeah, it was a very, very enticing and good battle between Palou and O'Ward, especially. Very fun to watch. But that was kind of all there was.
Yeah, that pit timing where O'Ward passed Pillow after a bad stop was chef's kiss.
It was so good. Yeah. All right, let's go through the results of the race. Oh, Ward won the race. Finally, first time he's won on track in like 2 years. Alex Palou came in second, followed by Scott McLaughlin and Colton Herta. Marcus Ericsson was fifth. 6 through 10 were Rossi, Lundgaard, Kirkwood, Rasmussen, and Ferrucci. 11 through 15 were Power, Malukas, Sauri, who it was his first race. 13th in your first race, pretty good.
Yeah.
Rosenqvist 14th and Lundqvist 15th, all the Qvists. 16 through 20 were Stingray Robb, Marcus Armstrong, Graham Rahal, Renus VK, and Nolan Siegel. I don't know if I've ever seen Stingray Robb as high up as 16th.
Insane.
21 through 25 were Kiffin Simpson, Augustine Canapino, Roman Grosjean, Pietro Fittipaldi, and Joseph Newgarden. And the last two were Jack Harvey and Scott Dixon. So, that was the race. Award is now up there in the championship in P3. Very much still in the championship picture if Palou somehow doesn't win the rest of the season. We had some new power units this race.
Yeah, that was honestly the most exciting part of the race for me.
Same here. I enjoyed watching the race. It wasn't exactly an exciting race, but watching the new power unit system, the new hybrid system, kind of seeing how drivers manage their charge and watching them charge up through corners and deploy it on the straights and figuring all that out while also managing their push to pass. There's a lot going on in an IndyCar nowadays.
I really liked watching the graphics. Yeah, like you said, seeing where they deploy it, seeing where they get energy back. Emily and I own a plug-in electric hybrid, so I was like, yeah, that makes sense. They're just like me.
Just like you, Ben.
Yeah. My Honda
I know
Clarity
what you have.
hybrid.
Honda Clarity. There it is.
Yeah.
So it's still Honda engines. It's probably about the same thing, right?
There you go. Yeah, 212 horsepower. 700 some odd horsepower with the hybrid system. 800.
There you go. Plus,
you
know, if you have a Chevy Volt out there, which I know is the same way, I've driven one of those. Basically the same thing. I mean, Chevy makes hybrid engines for IndyCar now.
Yeah.
I mean, it all works.
Yeah, but I was surprised how small the batteries are. I mean, I was looking into it, and they're pretty much more like capacitors. So they store up a tiny amount of power and discharge it super fast, just for getting out of things.
Very true.
I think is a really good way to implement it. One of the things about F1 that's always kind of confused me is they don't lean into the hybrid systems very often. They say it's there, but they don't really ever give you an indication of when it's being used. You can see the backlights flashing when they're harvesting, but aside from that, it's kind of hard to tell.
Well, all signs indicate that will change in 2026. So
yeah, F1 getting pushed to pass. Let's go.
Sort of. Kind of. They're getting a lot of things. They got is it X mode? What do they call it? It's not X mode. Is it X mode?
It might be X mode.
Probably not that. But
freak mode.
Yeah, the new F1 cars, not only are they going to have a huge emphasis on the hybrid system and a much larger hybrid system in the engine, they are also going to implement active aerodynamics. And they're getting rid of DRS. So, lots of changes, hopefully for the better. DRS is going away, but there are like two things that are kind of replacing it. So,
the things that are replacing it are a lot more like push to pass, where you can kind of use it where you feel it's most beneficial, not necessarily in the same place as everybody else.
Yeah,
from what I understand.
X mode is basically DRS. You can only use it on certain parts of the track, but the only difference is that everybody gets to use it, no matter where cars in front of you are.
Yeah, so that'll help with DRS trains a lot, which is not something that you see in IndyCar at all.
Yeah, I think so too. And then the hybrid system, I think, is going to work similarly to IndyCar, where you can only use a certain amount of boost per lap. It's not. I mean, boost makes it sound like turbo-y, but it's not. Um, so, anyway, car nerd coming out. I mean, that's what this podcast is, right? I don't know why I'm like
Different kind of car nerd.
apologizing for that.
Different car nerd
Um,
podcast.
yeah, different car nerd. I'm sure Donut Media has one of their 30,000 podcasts dedicated to that stuff.
No, Donut Media fell off, didn't you hear? It's all over.
Oh, that's right.
That was our
Yeah, they changed.
chance.
Yeah, we got this, Ben. Yeah, but everybody left Donut Media. There's some paddock news that's has nothing to do with racing, but
God, can you
uh,
imagine if we had a podcast about podcast drama in the automotive sector?
I feel like that'd do well. Maybe not the automotive sector, but just a podcast about podcast drama. Um, yeah, interesting with Donut kind of dissolving and everybody starting their own thing.
I feel like it started a while ago. I mean, a lot of people say that. It's like, oh, it started when they stopped doing up to speed and bumper to bumper, which, granted, those are what got me into Donut.
Same
But
here. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
it's much more noticeable once it's been called out.
yeah, for sure. Um, it's kind of sad. I mean, Donut Media was a big inspiration for this. I mean, this is obviously nothing even close to Donut. Uh, but in terms of the things that I envision for the future of this, if I so choose to really put the effort in to grow this, um, like that's kind of where my head was.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I was already set up to spend $500 on a Pontiac Vibe and make it into a rally car.
you can still do that. I would absolutely record that whole process with you, Ben.
Around Money Pit, but instead of it being Money Pit, it's just how cheap you can do it. The opposite.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
high low, but without the high.
yeah. Just low car.
We're building a low car. That is it.
Building a low car. I'm not sure if any of this is trademarked, so I'm sorry, Donut. We don't mean anything by it.
Or do
If
we?
you even
We're gonna
exist
get
anymore.
publicity from it.
Sure. Yeah, crapping on Donut Media while at the same time saying they inspired us.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so moving on, Newgarden has had a rough few weeks, and he's not getting better. I don't think Newgarden is like I'm not at the point where I'm like, oh, Newgarden's washed, but he's not had a good season.
Now, I wonder how much of it is mental after the St. Petersburg stuff. How much of it
Yeah,
is just, you know, him not being there. I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see at the Ohio races to see how that goes because that's his thing. That's where he always does best consistently every single time. So
yeah.
I'm hoping
Well,
he still does well at that, and hopefully that kind of jump starts him back into the swing of things because he was looking really strong towards the end of last season.
yeah. And at the beginning of the season until we found out he was cheating.
Yeah.
Uh, but anyway, so we'll see how Newgarden gets on for the rest of the season. We just crossed the halfway point in the IndyCar season, so still a few races left for him to grab some points. Probably, well, definitely out of the championship hunt, but he can still make a splash, win
Yep.
some races. All right, next up, we said we'd talk about this a little bit. McLaren has been making interesting moves in the driver market in IndyCar, cutting Teo Pourchaire for Nolan Siegel, and then cutting Alexander Rossi for Christian Lundgaard. The second of which I think
That almost felt
um,
more like a Rossi decision to me.
it's possible. Um, it did seem very his announcement on Instagram and everywhere else. It seemed very like he wasn't very upset about it.
Yeah.
Um, so could be a Rossi decision. I definitely agree with if they were gonna cut Rossi that Lundgaard is a very good choice. Um, but talking about what I meant more by this is the whole David Malukas thing. He was supposed to drive the number 6 car this year, and then they cut him because his wrist wasn't healing fast enough. But now his wrist is still not 100%, but he's, qualifying third and finishing, what did he finish, sixth? Something like that in that area. No, he finished 12th, but I mean, he didn't
Finished
have a
12th in
bad
a Myers
race.
Shank racing car.
Exactly, and qualified third.
Yeah.
Um, so, I don't, I thought David Malukas was a great hire for McLaren last year when it was announced, and I was like, that's going to be awesome. Um, or at least I think I did. Someone might fact check me on that, but luckily we don't have a following large enough for that to be really a possibility.
We have a following of
um,
the one or two people who would totally fact check that.
yeah, but I mean, I remember for sure last year saying that David Malukas was outperforming that car and deserved a seat higher up. So, um,
Yeah, especially
yeah,
when you consider who's replaced his seat. I mean, Teo Porcher is, I felt, was actually doing fairly strong in that seat.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, nowhere near the ceiling of where Malukas was at that moment. But
right,
if you compare him to where Siegel is, or where he placed at yesterday's race, it's a pretty big difference.
right. And there
Especially
was, I
given the
mean,
fact that one of the Aero McLaren cars literally won the race, and the other one was sixth.
yeah, and I mean, Nolan Siegel never gave any indication earlier on in the season that he was really ready for that. I mean, the only thing that I feel like got him that seat was winning Le Mans in the LMP2 series, which, sure, I mean, that takes skill. I'm not saying he's not a skilled driver, but like IndyCar and World Endurance are so, so different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't watch Le Mans really, but who's to say that Siegel was just kind of holding the pace and the other two were the reason they won? I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade, but like, it's a three-person team and they just hired this guy out of nowhere. Like, he just, like he's Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of an interesting move there for me. I would have kept Malukas on, or at the very least, if you were going to cut Malukas, I would have kept Porcher. You
Yeah.
keep him
Porcher at
in
least would
your
have been a little different decision. I would have been like, "Oh, sorry, Porcher. You gave it a good shot, but it's Malukas' seat." With
I
Siegel,
mean,
I'm
yeah.
like, "Get that kid out of there."
I mean, yeah, for Porcher, if he was cut and it was Malukas that was replacing him, I don't think anyone would have been mad. I mean, Malukas was hired for that job, and
Yeah.
he was out because of an injury, and he's back. I
Hmm.
mean, that would be like saying, "Oh no, Liam Lawson was replaced by Danny Ricciardo late last season. Oh, poor kid." It's like, no,
You got yeah. That's a good point actually. That's a good comparison. I forgot about that.
yeah. Um, while
Forgot
Lawson
about
did
Liam
great
Lawson.
in that Alpha Tauri, it was Ricciardo's seat at that point. So, um, you know. Anyway, I'm rambling. Um, Going through the standings, not much has changed. Palou is still way out in front, followed by Power and O'Ward. Scott Dixon did fall to fourth from third after that DNF. Well, the last place, I'll say.
Yeah.
Um,
Only 1 point behind Award though.
Only 1 point behind O'Ward. Colton Hurd is still kind of in the mix. Kyle Kirkwood's kind of in the mix. I'd be surprised if it was anybody other than the top three winning the championship at this point, though, or top four. I'll give Diction a shot.
Polo is still looking so strong. It's insane how strong he's looking, even with the brand new hybrid systems that they introduced.
It's pretty wild, yeah. Um, but clearly, O'Ward and Palou have the hybrid system figured out, and McLaren has that cool new innovation on the hybrid system for the dash readouts. They've got them kind of off the steering wheel and on the side. I think it makes it less crowded and easier to tell what's going on.
Plus,
So
it's way cooler to see for the in cockpit camera.
yeah, 100%. Um, so anyway, that rounds off IndyCar for this week. Let's talk about Formula One and the British Grand Prix. Probably the best race of the last 2 years.
It was my favorite race.
100% the best of this season, no question. I can't remember a ton of races that would have even come close to this, even last year. So, I mean, still, I think my favorite races last year were Singapore and Las Vegas, and maybe like the Netherlands. Um, but I don't think any of them had this. This was like Germany 2019 kind of race, like just mixed conditions and chaos
Yeah.
and yeah, good
Yeah, the
stuff.
mix was what was best. You got some dry racing, you got some wet racing, but it wasn't dominated by the rain and to the point where it
Yeah, and I
hindered the
think
racing.
it was one of those. It was like one of those perfect situations where sometimes there's races where it's just chaos and it's a fun, cool race because somebody unexpected wins and it's like completely undeserved, really, but also somebody else won. Whereas I think this was the best kind where it was chaos, but you saw three or four drivers push through the chaos and still have good results.
Yeah, and there is still strategy. There is still a way out. There's still
100%.
variation in that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So good stuff. Qualifying top 10, we had Russell on pole position once again for second time in a row, I think. Um,
maybe. Yeah.
yep. And then Hamilton second and Norris third. Fourth and fifth were Verstappen and Piastri. Hulkenberg was sixth. 7 through 10 were Sainz, Stroll, Albon, and Alonso. 11 through 15 were Leclerc, Sargent, Tsunoda, Zhou, and Ricardo. I know I said top 10, but I lied. 16 through 20 were Bottas, Magnussen, Ocon, Gasly, and Perez. Perez qualified last after spinning out in qualifying one. Notably, as you probably heard, Leclerc qualified 11th, right in front of Logan Sargent, so I'm sure that felt good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, really kind of crazy qualifying. Um, Going into the race, Russell had a good start and maintained the lead. Verstappen passed Norris into turn 4 to take P3, but, excuse me, on lap 15, Norris passed Verstappen into Stowe to take P3, and on lap 17, Piastri passed Verstappen into Stowe to take P4 as the rain started to fall. On lap 18, Hamilton passed Russell for the lead. On lap 19, both Mercedes went wide into turn 1, and Norris passed Russell into turn 4. On lap 20, Norris passed Hamilton into turn 1. Leclerc and Perez both boxed for intermediate tires on lap 20 on a dry track. Later that lap, Piastri passed Russell and Hamilton. On lap 28, most of the leaders pit for intermediates, with the exception of Piastri, who pit on lap 29. That cost him quite a few positions. He came out in P6. On lap 34, Russell retired from the race with water system issues. On lap 39, Hamilton and Verstappen pit for slicks, and Norris came in a lap later for soft tires. Hamilton passed Norris on pit strategy. On lap 48, Verstappen passed Norris for P2, and then hunted Hamilton down for the rest of the race, but Hamilton was able to maintain his lead. So, for the first time in over 2.5 years, Lewis Hamilton has won a Grand Prix, followed by Verstappen and Norris on the podium. Fourth and fifth were Piastri and Sainz. 6 through 10 were Hulkenberg, Stroll, Alonso, Albon, and Tsunoda. 11 through 15 were Sargent, Magnussen, Ricardo, Leclerc, and Bottas. And 16 through 18, rounding off the finishers, were Ocon, Perez, and Zhou. George Russell did not finish the race after that engine issue, and Pierre Gasly did not even start the race due to a gearbox issue. So, going into our talking points, McLaren threw away the win 3 times.
They were so they were so close 3 times.
So to give some backstory on this, kind of hard to tell from the highlights we just went over, and especially if you didn't watch the race. Lando Norris was commanding the race at many points. It looks like he was a shoe-in for the win. Like at halfway through the race, I thought there's no way anybody beats Lando. But then the first pit stop for rain came. Lando was still in front, but they had Oscar go around another time where he lost almost an entire pit stop worth of time being on the wrong tire. So he came in a lap late and dropped to P6 and had to make his way back up. So there was that. And then later on the second round of pit stops, going back to dry tires, Lando pit a lap later than the other two. Apparently that call was Lando's fault. He was the one that was going to make the call on when to come in. So he came in a lap late. That cost him a lot of time. However, when he came in, they gave him, well, they basically said, what tire do you want? And from what I got, he wasn't really clear with the answer. He just said throw slicks on, essentially. But he had a fresh set of medium tires and a used set of soft tires. Hamilton was going to pass him on new soft tires and on pit strategy, and Verstappen was behind him on fresh hard tires. So,
Eat
if you
him
got
up.
someone in front of you with new soft tires with 13 laps left to go on a high deg track, and you have someone behind you on hard tires, what makes the most sense? A used set of soft tires or a fresh set of medium tires? The answer is not a used set of soft tires, but that's what McLaren went with.
Didn't Lando
So,
request whatever Hamilton had, and Hamilton was on softs at that point, or
I don't really know what happened. I think it was phrased in a way that made it sound like the softs were better.
okay?
Um, what McLaren said was, would you like mediums to cover Verstappen on hards, or would
Mm,
you like softs to cover Hamilton? And so, like, Lando with probably 10-ish seconds to, well, probably a little more, but I mean, not really, if because they have to run out with the tires and stuff. He
plus,
probably had
he's a
10,
little busy.
yeah, 10 to 20 seconds while driving an F1 car to make this decision on um, the information he was given, which is softs to cover Lewis, who is 4 seconds behind you, or mediums to cover Verstappen, who is 15 seconds behind you. And given those two options, I mean, without any outside context, the softs make more sense.
Yeah,
Um, but given the actual context of the race, the mediums are just, it was just a clear option. Um, so I think it was phrased in a way that led Norris to make the call for softs when I think the team should have stepped in and said, hey, no, these mediums are going to be way better in the long run.
yeah. That's where that top-down view comes in handy because they didn't tell him that Verstappen was on hards. They just said to cover Verstappen, go to mediums.
Yeah.
And I think
Um,
context like that is kind of important.
yeah. So it's, I mean, if you're asked to cover, if you're in first place and you're asked if you want to cover the person in third 15 seconds behind you, or if you want to cover the person in second 4 seconds behind you, I mean,
There's an obvious
that
choice there.
there's an obvious choice when in reality that choice was incorrect. Um, and I think he pretty much knew it immediately once he left the pits. So unfortunate. They talked about it in the cool down room, and Hamilton asked him, he's like, "Didn't you have a new set of mediums?" And Lando was like, "Yeah." So
Max's head whip when he hears what tire choice Lando made.
yeah, he was like, "You chose the softs." Uh, so yeah, McLaren had three chances. Oh, the third chance was Oscar Piastri finished fourth, right behind Lando Norris at the end of the race. And if they had pit him and he didn't lose 20 seconds, uh, if he lost 16, or well, if he would have lost like four maybe because of the double stack,
Hmm.
if they would have pit him for the wets on the same lap as Lando, there's a real chance that Piastri would have won the race too. Because Piastri did go to the mediums and he was so fast at the end.
Yeah,
Um, so Piastri could have won the race if they didn't mess that one call up. So they had two chances for Lando to win and one chance for Oscar to win, and none of it
that's just
happened.
racing, baby.
Exactly. That's why we love it. But with all this being said about Lando's mistakes, well, McLaren's mistakes, Mercedes looked so fast this weekend. Like their car is looking good,
Yeah, it's looking much better.
much better. They weren't
This is
super
perform it
great in
should
the
have
change.
been.
Yeah, they weren't super great in the changeable conditions, or the McLaren was godlike. I can't quite tell which one it was. Um, but they did struggle once the wet weather started coming out. And it was kind of like they were on the wrong-ish tire. Um, they were going off the track and snapping, and didn't look fun to drive. But overall, I'd say their car looks a lot better. Um, so I mean that's two poles in a row for Russell, and that's two Mercedes wins in a row. Um, did Russell get pole, or was it? I mean, he won the race last year or last week. I
I don't
can't
remember if he
remember
got
if he
full.
got pole. He
I
might
don't
not
think he
have.
did.
No, probably not. I might be.
I think that
Yeah,
was Silverstone.
yeah, it probably was. He did win the race because of the clash though last week. But
Yes. Yeah.
anyway, so that's two races in a row Mercedes has won. When at the beginning of the season, if you told me that, I would have laughed.
Yeah. especially in a
So
row.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, Lewis won the race, and actually, I am not ashamed to
I
admit
was okay with that. I was pretty
I got,
happy.
yeah, I even got a little emotional. Like it was a really cool moment.
Yeah,
Um, like, I've never been a huge Lewis fan. Like since I started watching F1, I haven't been a huge fan of his for various reasons. But
he was always
uh,
the Bono my tires are gone guy.
yeah. Um, but after 2.5 years of not winning, I can only imagine what that feels like. And to get that back, he talked about how he thought, maybe I'll never win a race again. Um, so to have a race that he won that's outside of the context of that 2021 season, which was his last race win, um, we all know how that ended. So I think it's really cool, and I think it's really cool he did it at home. Um, and yeah, it
Yeah,
was,
this felt like one of the most impactful race wins for him in like the past 5 years, or even it. Yeah, it's been a long time since he had a race win this important. I think.
for sure. Yeah. So I really happy for him. I never thought I would say that I was happy to see Lewis Hamilton win a race, but here we
Here
are.
we are.
He becomes the oldest driver to win a race in the this millennium, and has the record for the longest gap between first race win and last race win. He is the first driver to win a race after having raced in at least 300 Grand Prix. Uh, he broke a lot of records with this one.
Yeah, he's the race win record holder at Silverstone now too. I think.
Yeah, total so he has the record for the most wins at a single track. He has 9 wins at Silverstone now, and Schumacher had 9 in Canada. I don't remember. Uh, so don't quote me on that. It might be MLI. I'm probably just saying random tracks right now. Um, but anyway, uh, yeah, he has the record. No one's won 9 races at a single circuit before. So pretty cool stuff. I think Hungary is another one that he's won just a ton of times.
Hmm.
But anyway, Max Verstappen had a interesting weekend. He had damage in qualifying after spinning off the track in Q2, Q1 or Q2. So he did not get pole position, didn't even really get close to pole position, but apparently he lost 100 points of downforce, which the aerodynamic experts tell us is a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
100 points
so,
out of something. We don't know.
yeah, not sure, but I mean, they talk about when you hear someone lost 20 points of downforce, all the commentators like lose their cool and they're like, oh my goodness. So 100, that's a bit. Um, and apparently when they brought him into the pits in qualifying, they were like literally like trying to duct tape and glue things back onto the car. So um,
Yeah, Max's that Red Bull car was so confusing to me pace wise during the race because sometimes it felt like Max was just going flat out through every single corner, and sometimes it felt like he was driving the fifth fastest car on the grid.
yeah, it was an interesting one. Not sure entirely what happened, but all I know is that the only tire that seemed to work for him that race was the hard tire. Because once he got on that hard at the end of the race, he was so
It
fast.
clicked. Yeah,
So fast. Um, so he's a little bit on the back foot, but I wouldn't say he's out of it for
he's
sure.
got a healthy
I
points
mean,
buffer.
he's still leading the championship. So interesting stuff. It's the first time in a while I think that we've gone 2 races in a row. Actually, no, maybe Miami, Monaco. I don't remember the order there, but uh,
Yeah, that's right. Because that was
doesn't seem
Signs and then
it's
Perez, wasn't it?
I don't remember, but I it's really cool that Max winning isn't a given anymore.
Yeah,
So I am very happy. I think so far this has been the best season since 2021, and it's going to be really hard to beat 2021 just because that season was so intense
it
the
was
entire
blow
time.
for blow, neck and neck, right up to the end.
It was a championship battle, which I don't know if we're going to get this year. We might towards the end of the season. Um, but 2021 was back and forth the entire way. So I
Yeah,
don't think
the
anything's
racer
gonna top that.
versus a guy who had never won the championship before.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
but
stakes
in
and
terms of, I mean, this is reminiscent of 2012 though, when you had like six different race winners in the first six races. I mean, we're not quite there yet, but I mean, we might be. We have what, six or seven different race
we have
winners now?
six.
Six.
Yeah,
So it has been 12 races, but still, I mean, like in terms of recent history, this is kind of insane.
yeah,
Um, so really cool that we're getting. I mean, the only person, there's two people in the top three teams who haven't won races yet, and it's Piastri and Perez. Um, I think one of which is more likely to win a race this year than the other.
yeah. That
Speaking
brings us to
speaking of Sergio Perez, another qualifying disaster. I don't think we're gonna go as hard on him as we did last week, but
no.
um,
We'd just be restating things at that point.
yeah, another really bad weekend for him. He had a horrible qualifying. Didn't even, well, he qualified last after crashing, so can't get much worse than that. But even in the race, he just was nowhere. Granted, to his credit, his strategy was probably the worst I've ever seen. Um, so I mean, I think they were just taking risks, but I mean, Leclerc was essentially on the same strategy, and his race was over too.
He was
Both
testing for
Perez,
Verstappen.
yeah, both Perez and Leclerc finished a lap down. Um, so not great. I mean, not definitely not a race to remember on the Perez side. Not entirely his fault. I'm going to put some of the blame on Red Bull there for the strategy. But, I mean, if he didn't qualify in last place, they wouldn't have had to, take risks like that.
Yeah,
So there is that. He's got to do better. He's got two races now to outscore outscore Verstappen by like 30 something points. Like two races to outscore Verstappen by 30 some odd points, and also has to stay within five places of him. Neither of which seem very likely. Well, the 30 points I think is next to impossible. Um, but the fifth place is like, I think there is probably an 80% chance that he is not in fifth place by the end of Spa.
yeah, yeah. Mercedes is just they're too strong now.
Yeah.
This race
Um,
confirmed it for me.
yeah, and I don't think the Red Bull is going to be very strong at Spa either.
No,
They don't
especially after
have
this race, seeing Verstappen's pace on the straights.
Yeah, that's the thing is they don't have the straight line speed. They don't have the high speed corner speed. Um, like high speed corners seem to be a big weakness of theirs, and that's where the McLaren excels. So, um, and the Mercedes. So I don't think I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible that Perez meets those requirements. I do think it is possible that they retain him until the end of the season. I think it's possible they retain him for 2025, but I
Even
don't
if
think it's
he
possible
fails the
that they.
contract.
So the thing is those clauses are in there, but it gives Red Bull the option. So
That's true.
I think they might just be doing this, announcing this to put pressure on him, but I don't know. I mean, it is possible. Like I say, it is possible they retain him for until the end of the season or until 2026. I didn't say it was likely.
Fair enough.
So in terms of replacements, it's there's two. There's two possibilities. It's gonna be Ricardo or Sonoda. It's probably gonna be Ricardo because that's Christian Horner loves that guy so much. Um, so
That doesn't make any
it's
more sense to me, but go off Christian Horner.
it doesn't make sense to me either. But oh, I do have some news for you, Ben.
Oh,
Uh, Something I found out this week that I just had to share with the podcast.
okay.
Speaking of Daniel Ricciardo, my girlfriend, her least favorite driver is Daniel Ricciardo. Like
You
she
know
hates
what?
him.
Emily actually is also not a fan of Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay, what's going on, Ben? Because like he's the what?
I don't know. We're also talking about my wife, who is equally a fan of Hamilton and Verstappen and Alonso.
Okay, that's That's also blasphemous. Like, all right, I guess we need to sit them down and have a four-person conversation about this.
An intervention.
Um, yeah, there needs to be a double intervention here. But her least favorite drivers are Ricardo and Tsunoda, so she just does not like VCarb.
Wow. I
um,
I think Emily would agree with her on a lot of things, but I
they
don't think we're
probably
gonna
do.
convince her of any other thing anytime soon. She is much more strong-willed than I am.
Yeah, fair enough.
She would 100% survive interrogation if she went through it. I would not.
Yeah. I just found that very interesting and shocking, and she just like passionately dislikes Daniel Ricciardo. So, I just wanted to share that because I just can't keep that
It's
on
so
my in my
rare.
chest. Yeah, so rare. He's like the most loved guy out there.
Maybe that's a
Uh,
sign that just overall sentiment from the layperson is waning.
Maybe. I mean, but do you know? Do you want to know what she said to me when I told her Ricardo? Like, I told her Ricardo got 15th place, and her response was just simply good.
that was that was awesome. Good. Screw that guy. We hate him. He smiles too often. He's not even that good of a racer. He hasn't been good since Renault.
Yeah, I mean, she thinks that he's like super arrogant and pious, and like he's kind of being a crybaby about his whole situation. I'm like, oh my god.
I mean,
Uh, is she wrong?
to be
Probably
fair,
not.
he did leave. Well, given the state of where Renault is now as Alpine, I mean, it's not like V Carb's any worse, but I mean, he was on the up and up at Renault when he left.
Yeah.
He was pulling in points. He and Hulkenberg. Um,
She said that she liked him when we started watching Drive to Survive. Uh,
the
she
Renault
said she
years.
liked him at Red Bull and Renault, and then when
Yeah.
he moved to McLaren, that's when she started to not like him. So, I guess I get that. I get it, but like, maybe I'm just not a good judge of character. But
Yeah, it's
I was
just
just so
another
taken
Drive to
aback.
Survive effect.
I was so taken aback. I asked her who her least favorite driver was, and she said Daniel Ricciardo, and I'm like, what?
Out of all of them, I think Lance Stroll is still Emily's least favorite driver.
Okay, well, Lance Stroll is not even a driver, so um,
She said something pretty similar, actually.
yeah. Anyway, we've all got very similar opinions on Lance Stroll at this point. Who did actually beat Fernando Alonso this week, so I guess there's that.
So weird.
But actually, I could have called that because Lance Stroll is a terrible driver in every way, shape, or form, unless it's raining, and then he turns into a god. So, um,
He had
just
his
really
Senna
good in the
moment,
rain.
and that's it.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Alpine had a disastrous week with Gasly not even starting the race due to technical difficulties, and Ocon finishing last, I think, of the finishers. No, finished 16th out of 18th. But still, not a good week for Alpine. Logan Sargent, though, on the up and up. What even is a kilometer? He is no longer P21 in the championship.
That
Let's
was
hear
his
it.
best finish so far, wasn't it? Or
It was
no, last year in
11th.
Austin he got a point.
It was either ninth or 10th in Austin, yeah,
Yeah,
because of some shenanigans with
hijinks.
the boards, the scrape boards or whatever they're called on the bottom. Um, that got some cars disqualified. But uh, yes, Logan Sargent finished 11th on track. I think that is matching
His
his
best
best
on track
results.
finish.
I think it matches his best on track finish. Yeah. Um, but with that, he passes Valtteri Bottas in the championship, which kind of surprises me. But yeah, he is now 20th place. No longer 21st out of 20 cars.
Yep,
And then finally, we have to talk about the Leclerc pain.
Le Pen.
Uh, Le Pen. Um, Leclerc, since Monaco, has had nothing but nightmares of races. So something weird is either going on at Ferrari, or he's just, continuing to be the unluckiest man on the grid, aside
I
from
feel like
Fernando
Sainz has
Alonso.
also not been as pacey as he has been in the first half of the season.
Yeah, he's been a little slower. I think the Ferrari's falling behind in development a little bit.
I think that's
Um,
the big thing.
but I mean, Leclerc he hasn't scored points. I think he scored points once since Monaco, I think. It was like
Really?
eighth or something. Yeah.
No, that can't be
Um,
right.
let's look this up, Ben.
I thought for sure Leclerc's been finishing ahead of Sainz past couple races.
Maybe, but he's not scoring points. All
Hmm.
right, let's run this back. All right, we'll go back to Monaco where Leclerc won. So obviously there, Canadian Grand Prix. Leclerc finished. He did not finish.
Oh, okay.
Spanish Grand Prix. Leclerc finished. Where is he? He finished fifth. Okay, so he finished fifth in Spain. Austria finished 11th out of the points. And Great Britain finished 14th. So yeah, scored once,
Oh,
got a
okay.
fifth place
Wow,
in Spain.
that's brutal.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. But anyway,
That's it. Replace him with Antonelli. Get him out of there.
yeah. Speaking of Antonelli, he
Oh
did
boy.
win. He actually did win a race this weekend. He
Wow.
finished first place in the sprint race for F2, and then he DNF'd on lap one of the feature race.
There we
So
go.
it all balances out.
Mercedes are so excited to get him next year.
They're so excited. Um, I think a lot of the driver market now hinges on who Williams signs.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, Ricardo is now locked at VCarb until they make a decision on Perez. He's not going to leave.
Mhm.
Um, so I know he was being enticed by Williams, but now with all this Perez drama coming out, there's no way he leaves.
I would love to see
Um,
Ricardo Williams so much more than V-Carb.
me too. But also in the hunt is Valtteri Bottas, and also, well, Carlos Sainz is no longer in the picture. Who was the other guy? Probably Antonelli is another one. Um, and then they've got Jack Crawford, I think, is a Williams Academy driver in F2. Um, they've got a few options if they want to go with a younger driver or they want to go with someone experienced. Uh, they've got some options, and then Ocon is still up for grabs.
Hmm.
So, yeah. All right, let's move into standings real quick. Nothing has changed. Sainz is really close to Leclerc now for P3. He's only 4 points behind Leclerc. Lando has extended his lead on P2 and is not closing the gap to Verstappen, but is also still in the hunt. We are now exactly halfway through the season, so anything can happen. Um, then Russell and Hamilton are basically tied on points in 7th and 8th, and they are 7 and 8 points behind Perez, respectively. So Piastri has passed Perez. I think that happened this race. Yeah, it must have. So Perez is now 6th in the championship. And yeah, one more place and he is out of a seat, essentially. Um, so it'll all depend on Mercedes and how they do. Both Astons are now in 9th and 10th, and they are way far out of the picture. So that will not be a problem for Perez, but Russell and Hamilton will very much be a problem for Perez. All right. Team championship, Red Bull still way out in front, followed by Ferrari at 302 points. They are 71 points behind Red Bull. And McLaren now at 295, so they are right on Ferrari's heels. Probably going to pass them at this rate and start closing that gap towards Red Bull. If I think this might be why all the Perez drama is coming out now, is because I think Red Bull are panicking a little bit, realizing that if they do the math and do their projections, if this form continues for the rest of the season, McLaren will win the championship.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy to think about. Can you imagine McLaren winning the championship?
I can't really, but
Would
also
you
like looking at
explode?
math, I
You
might
die?
just explode. Like it, you might not see me for a few weeks. But yeah, I really hope that happens. I don't think Verstappen. I think Verstappen's got it, if I'm being honest. Um, but Red Bull definitely does not have it yet.
Yeah.
So I think McLaren is looking poised to win the first championship they have won. Oh boy, When was the
since
last time McLaren won a championship? Has it been since the early
not this
90s?
millennium
Because they
or this
didn't
century,
win.
whatever it's called.
No, oh wait, they would have possibly won, but then Spygate happened, so they got disqualified. That's when Hamilton won with McLaren the
Mm,
Drivers' Championship. Um, '07 might have been McLaren.
okay.
Okay,
That's not as bad. I mean, it's still
let
a
me
long
see.
time, but I was thinking it was like, back in the Marlboro days.
It very well could be. Let me look at this. McLaren Championships. Excuse me while I scroll Wikipedia. Okay, this is not 2008, but they were disqualified. Oh, that might be drivers. So 1999, that can't be right either. That no, it's not giving me a solid answers here, but I am thinking it's probably been at least 30 years.
Now that would be a cool moment.
Yeah. Maybe 2000. Okay, maybe 99 2000 because that's when Mika Hakkinen won the championship. So, uh possibly 2000ish.
That's what Mika
Possibly.
Hakkinen has been waiting for. He's just been waiting for McLaren to win the championship, and then he'll come back.
Then he'll come back from his hiatus.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get this rolling. We've been on the air for almost an hour now.
Oh man.
So, pit stop championship, Red Bull and Verstappen won that with a time of 1.99 seconds. Second and third were Perez and Ocon. Fourth and fifth were Tsunoda, Leclerc. 6 through 10 were Sainz, Norris, Ricciardo, Alonso, and Stroll. Championship, Verstappen retakes the lead by 1 point. Nothing else interesting. And Alpine, no, RB passed Aston Martin for 6th place. That's all. Overtake of the week. I gave this to Oscar Piastri for his overtake on George Russell on lap 20 of the British Grand Prix around the outside of turn 4 in the wet. Cars both twitching all over the place, and he made it work.
We love an outside pass.
We love an outside pass. Honorable mention goes to Marcus Ericsson for his pass around the outside of turn 2 at Mid-Ohio on... Who was it? Christian Rasmussen? That sounds right.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, it was Rasmussen.
Yep. That was another great outside pass. All right. And weekly predictions for last week. Mid-Ohio. Pole position, Ben, went to Alex Palou. Who'd you say?
I had power.
I had O'Ward, and O'Ward was like less than a tenth of a second away from it. So, I'm not salty.
It's okay because you put him in your podium, right?
Nope. Podium was O'Ward, Palou, McLaughlin. What'd you say, Ben?
I had Palou, Herta, McLaughlin.
I had Herta, Power, and Palou.
Man, if only you carried over your pole position into your podium.
Yeah, kind of swapped that one out. All right, winning pit stops was 2. What did you say?
I put 3.
I had 2, so I got that one right. All right, British Grand Prix top 5 to remind everybody was Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, and Sainz. What did you say, Ben?
We were not eating good this week. I had Verstappen, Piastri, Norris, Russell, Hamilton with Ocon as my dark horse. I got Norris in 3rd and nothing else.
Yikes, well, I didn't do any better. In fact, I did worse. I had Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, and Russell. And Gasly was my dark horse. So, my dark horse didn't start the race, and my 5th place didn't finish the race.
Incredible.
Brutal. I got the top 4 right, though, just in the wrong order.
There you go.
We take those. All right, fastest lap went to Carlos Sainz. What did you say?
I had Norris.
I had Verstappen. And driver of the day went to Lewis Hamilton, deservedly so. What did you say, Ben?
I had Russell, so at least I was on Mercedes track.
There you go. And I had Norris. I was trying. I tried, but
so close.
It's fine. All right. Pole position 4. We got 3 IndyCar races before the next episode, so buckle
excited.
up.
I love the Iowa weekend.
It's a great weekend, yeah. All right, pole position for the first. All right, Ben. I'm going to give you one chance now. There is one qualifying.
Oh shit! I did this last year too.
You did this last year, and that's why I remember. Now you can hedge your bets and put two different like you have now, or you can
And just
not hedge
suffer
your
the
bets.
consequences of being doubly wrong.
Well, if I get it wrong, I could be doubly wrong too. But both of mine were the same.
I'll change it. I'll be fair.
Okay.
We're
Alrighty.
all in on
Pole
Ganassi,
position.
boys.
Pole position for the first Iowa race and the second Iowa race. What'd you say, Ben?
I got Dixon for this one.
And I've got Joseph Newgarden. This is his track. This is his time.
I felt that
All
was too
right.
predictable, so I wanted to see a Dixon one because Dixon is pretty much good everywhere all the time, no matter what, unless he has hybrid engine problems from a brand new power unit.
Gotcha. Well, you saying my prediction is predictable, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
podium.
that's what I meant.
Yeah. Podium. What do you got, Ben?
I got for the first one. I've got Newgarden, Dixon, and Erickson.
And I have Newgarden, Polo, and O'Ward. All right. Winning number of pit stops. What do you got, Ben?
I've got 4.
I have 5. Ben plus 1. All right. Iowa 2. We both have our pole position. You say Dixon. I say Newgarden once again. Podium. What do you have for this one?
I'm gonna say Award, Erickson, and Pillow for this one.
And I'm going to say O'Ward, Dixon, and Power. All
Noticing
right.
a few common threads throughout these.
Yeah. Um, winning number of pit stops for the second race. What do you got?
Still 4.
And I still have 5. It's the same race. Well, actually, is it? I don't know if it is the same race.
Did they run it opposite?
Second one might be longer. I'm gonna stick with 5 though.
Yeah, I'll stick with 4.
Alrighty. Toronto is the next week after that. Pole position in Toronto. What do you got, Ben?
I got Pillow for this one.
And I also have Pillow. Podium. What do you have?
I'm gonna be really bold and not put Pillow in this. I'm gonna put Rossi, Herta, and Dixon for this one.
Okay. I have Lundgaard, Pillow, and Rossi.
Ooh.
So, yeah, Lundgaard won this race last year, so that's why. All right, winning number of pit stops. What do you got?
I got 3 for this one.
And I have 2. Alrighty, moving on to Formula One and the Hungarian Grand Prix. Give me your top 5 and dark horse, Ben.
I got Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, and Russell with Tsunoda as my dark horse. I'm feeling much better about him as a dark horse than most of the other drivers at this point, aside from the one that you put.
Yep, I feel like I beat you to the punch on this one.
Yeah, I did.
All right, my top 5 are Piastri in first, followed by Norris and Verstappen. Then Leclerc in fourth and Russell in fifth, with Nico Hulkenberg as my dark horse. I don't even know if he's much of a dark horse candidate anymore
What an
because
absolute Eunice
he's coming sixth
unit.
the last 2 races.
Yeah.
So like he's knocking on the door.
Yeah.
That guy he's actually killing it right now, and I'm so excited to see what he does at Audi. Well,
God, I
Sauber
hope Audi gives him a good car.
next year is probably going to be some pain, but I think Sauber is mature enough to realize what's going on, and so I doubt he will be cut. I mean, it's probably 1,000% Audi that made the decision to sign him, so I'd be surprised. Uh, but I think it's going to be a little painful next year for that guy, just based on what's going on this season.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can survive that with some pride. But he's proved he still has the stones, definitely. All right, fastest lap. What do you got?
I got Piastri for this one.
And I have Verstappen, driver of the day. What'd you say?
I'm gonna try Norris this time. I'm gonna see what it's all about.
Yeah, I've got Piastri. I think if he wins, he'll get driver of the day.
I agree.
But we'll see. All right, Ben. It is now time for everybody's favorite segment. Do you have any words of wisdom for us on these hot summer days?
I do. So it is. I don't know if I have the weather pulled up right now. Let's see. My watch says it's 101 degrees right now, and it is 7:15 ish in the evening. It is quite hot, and it's only been getting hotter year over year. So just some simple ways to keep your house cool. Just make sure you're opening your windows at night and getting your fans going at night. Get them pulling in at night to get all the cold air circulating through. And then in the morning, once it hits 8 or 9 max, you gotta really be on that to make sure none of the air gets out. Uh, Close up your windows, close your curtains, close your blinds, do whatever it takes. You can keep the fans going from the darker rooms and blowing air into the warmer rooms. That'll kind of help circulate some of that colder air from the dark rooms around. And yeah, it's really about just managing your windows. You can put a bunch of air in your, or not air, you can put a bunch of water in your tub or in a bucket and blow an air over it. And as the water evaporates, that'll help cool the air, just like a makeshift swamp cooler that's pretty simple and cheap to have going.
Good stuff, Ben. I try to
Well,
post this.
thermodynamics for you.
Yeah, it is very, very warm. I'm sitting here above my garage, so it's I'm feeling it. I
Yeah,
am
I
turning the
recently
AC
took
on.
out a significant loan to get air conditioning, but not everybody can do that.
There you go. All right. Thank you for those words of wisdom. We do have a comment, not a question, but I just found it amusing. Posted it in here last second, and
This
the
is
formatting is just making me so angry. But, uh, all right. So this is from my coworker, Omega Echo Kane, who is still the only person other than one of us to comment on our videos. Please, people, we will definitely answer your questions. Um, no shade to Omega. But the comment just says slander with party poppers surrounding it. This is about the last episode where we just talked so much crap about Perez for about 20 minutes.
that was the funniest thing seeing you just post in the scripts. I just see this like awfully formatted like piece of JPEG looking weird art, and in the middle in tiny little letters it just says slander with an
Yes.
exclamation point.
Yeah. That is accurate, and that is definitely what it looks like. Um anyway, yeah, definitely slander last episode. We got some in this episode, but we don't have time for any more slander. It has been long enough. So thank you everybody so much for watching and or listening to this episode. If you liked it, leave a like. If I can talk, then please, if you liked it, leave a like or a rating on the platform you listened on. Subscribe or follow if you'd like to see more. If you want to see updated standings for IndyCar and Formula One, please check us out at RevHang.com. If you have a question about racing or about us, hit us up on any socials or comments, in comments or DMs. I'm not speaking today. We may feature your question on the next show. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMatesWorld and myself at 2n_squared. You can follow RevHang on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at RevHang Media. We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about the 3 upcoming IndyCar races in Iowa and Toronto, and the Formula One Hungarian Grand Prix, which, I never look forward to, but it usually is pretty decent. So, this time, I'm going to make a change in my life, and I'm going to look forward to it.
Forward to it. It's not just the place where Bottas went bowling anymore.
It's not.
Truly
it's
could
not.
be a place of change.
Could be another Verstappen spin to win, but we'll see. That is why we do this. That is why we enjoy doing this. And that is why we will continue to do this for hopefully years to come.
Forever.
But with all that being said, until next time, I've been Nathan.
And I'm Ben.
Thanks for hanging out.
Stay cool out there.